Hello everybody, welcome to this new episode of Reactor the podcast. I'm very happy to welcome Amelie today. Welcome Amelie.
Thank you, Jerome, for having me on your podcast. I'm really happy to be here.
Really happy to have you. So Amelie is the CEO of Nix, which is a solution that she will present to us, to everybody today. So really glad to have you here. I'm gonna jump directly into the subject. So how does an experienced consultant, international consultant, end up being a CEO of an animal tracking device company?
Well, that was a long journey, but it's actually through meeting with very interesting people, ecologists, wildlife scientists, that I decided to pursue my passion and develop a technology solution to help wildlife survive. And actually, I met a guy named Olivier Bérin, who is a reference in wildlife ecology. He works in Madagascar, and he told me an awful story back in 2021. During COVID, when the borders were closed, he couldn't organize any scientific mission on his reserve for over a year and a half, and it resulted in the loss of 2/3 of its animals during that time because they couldn't monitor them remotely. So that's how I got into thinking about Nix.
Wow. So that's a perfect transition to the next question. Can you pitch Nix under a minute?
Yeah, sure. So Nix is a conservation technology solution. What we do is animal monitoring everywhere in the world with no white zone in natural environments like mountains, deserts, forests. And we retrieve remote information directly for the wildlife scientists and ecologists to get their data on their smartphone so they can speed up intervention and learn about animal behavior.
Wow, impressive. And you have one of your colors here.
Yeah, exactly.
So
the beastie there.
Cool. Can you present it a little bit just for our audience?
So basically, this is an IoT device, pretty much like a Fitbit for us, but this is for wild animals. And the pain that we solve is connectivity in remote areas with an IoT technology that combines cellular networks, so terrestrial, and non-terrestrial networks that have just been implemented. And so this device is communicating directly to the cloud, and then the information is directly available on a web and mobile platform that is called Nix App.
Cool.
And it's 250 grams, so it's very light compared to other solutions that were previously used to monitor animals on the field.
So yeah, that's also a perfect transition. How does it compare to existing solutions, and on what type of animals can you put this device?
Yeah, sure. So for now, we are doing only terrestrial animals. Okay. So this device works a little bit like Swatch. You change the belt depending on the species, and then the electronics stays the same. And how it works is that we just send this device to wildlife scientists and smallholder farmers, and it takes 5 minutes for them to fit it to the animal. So it's very easy to use.
And what is the difference between other solutions that existing, what are the pains that you help solving now that were not, like, except from the weight, you mentioned the weight already. What was the other inconvenience with other devices?
Well, actually, what my clients told me is that usually when they used to buy other tracking technologies, so the ancestor of this was radio frequency tracking. So maybe some of you already saw Nat Geo Wild documentaries with park guards with big antennas looking for the animals. And actually, there is a distance limitation that we suppress. So with this device, you don't have to have a team on the field close to the animal to pick up a signal. You can be completely remote, and then the data is automatically retrieved and stored and analyzed. Before, with other technologies, it was harder to retrieve the data and then to make analytics.
Cool. Can you walk us through a use case that you already work with the customer, and from the beginning to the end, and how you help them solve their tracking problems and tracking solution?
Well, there is an example. One of our early clients was the animal park of Auvergne, and they had new enclosures for animals where there were 2 different species of ungulates, chamois and ibexes, and actually they wanted to know how the species could adapt to their new enclosure and how they interacted with each other. So we fitted 2 collars on 2 individuals, one from the chamois and one from the ibexes, and we monitored them for over 3 months on a 30 minutes basis, and then it helped them know at the end what part of the enclosure each species was using, and they realized that they were usually coming together at the moment that they were fed. If not, some of them prefer to be at the height of the enclosure and some of them in the lower area. And this they couldn't have known without this kind of devices, because of course there is no people who can stay observing the animals at the enclosure during night and day for 3 months. And I have another great story about the National Park of Vanoise, who is a public consumer. They are monitoring ibexes, alpine ibexes, who are endangered species, endemic also from the Alps. And these ibexes, of course, they run in places where people can't go. So their problem was to know when does the migration start, how they are affected by the increasing temperature, especially during the summer, and also maybe by the frequentation of the park that increases during summertime. So they fitted an ibex, and I was with them. We hiked 2,000 meters. They darted the ibex. We waited, then we fitted the collar, and then the ibex went on his way. And for 7 months, we could know his daily movement. And they actually realized that when the temperature rises above 25 degrees, we could see the difference in space occupation. So they were actually going up to the summit when the temperature were rising. And so that's how they can know when the animal is going to start migrating, reproduction period, and also when they are starting mission to observe them on the ground. And the park is huge, so they don't know where they are, of course.
And one thing that struck me when you presented Nix to me was that the more remote it is, the better. If we're going a little bit into the tech, that's where Nix stands out. You have a specific technology. Can you go a little deeper for our techies in our audience that like the tech? How specifically you achieve consistency and availability of your solution where some others can't just have the same precision that you have?
Yeah, for sure. Well, usually animal tracking was done with satellite, geostationary satellite. The problem with that is that revisit time is long, several hours, and energy consumption is huge. So it means that the battery is heavy and you cannot equip a lot of animals with it because the device ends up being very heavy. So what we do is that we use cellular networks, it can be NB-IoT, LTE-M, with a fallback on GSM networks like 2G or 3G, and also a relay on the new NTN constellations. So we are working with Kineis, the new Argos that was made for environmental monitoring. So combining these both technologies, spatial and terrestrial, we can cover all use cases. Because, for example, satellite cannot work under forest cover, while our devices has really great performance in any environment because we combine all of these technologies to retrieve data. And because it is IoT, there is the device communicating to the cloud, but we can also order the device to do some things from the cloud. For example, switch tracking frequency from 15 minutes to once a day or once a week, depending on their need. So it's much more efficient on energy consumption.
Yeah, can you talk a little more about the battery that you have on this kind of device? Because that's also a great asset from those.
Exactly. So before the equipment that were used were equipped with disposable batteries. It meant that when the battery life is over, the whole device cannot be used again. What we are doing is equipping them with rechargeable batteries, which means that the life cycle of the device will be several years, maybe 6 years at least, just switching the batteries, recharging them. And that's exactly what we want to do. We don't want to do disposable. We want to do something that they can use for a long time, and of course recycle them once they are at the end of their life.
Cool. Very, very nice. Where does the company today stands in terms of traction, partnerships, and funding? Coming back to the company.
Yeah, of course. So about the company, we're now in the stage where we have 10 paying clients. So the technology works. It has been tested in over 7 countries in Europe, but also in America, in Africa, and in Asia. So we know that the connectivity and the device works globally. We already have clients in the conservation industry with national parks, private reserves, but also in the livestock industry with smallholder farmers, or energy group with such photovoltaic panels that are maintaining their land with sheep. That is very
nice use case. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a nice use case because this is the cheapest way and the most efficient way to maintain land. And so now we are in the process of reaching out to more clients. We partner with agricultural cooperatives, looking also into research labs that are working on animal behavior, so that we can make sure that these devices answer their need. And we are in our first round of funding. We already have Techstars on board, so the US accelerator that is one of the biggest early stage investor in the world, and some really nice business angels that are also entrepreneurs. And one of them is Edmond de la Panouse, who's the owner of the Thoiry Safari, reference in conservation in France. So we are still looking for TK on this round so that we can industrialize the process of production now and start investing also in the go-to-market, distribution, partnership, and marketing, of course.
What are the limitations for you in terms of selling? Can you already sell throughout the world? Those colors?
Well, technically could, because I actually receive leads from our website. Some people contact us now from Morocco, from Cameroon, from India, from Brazil, from Peru. So we receive solicitations from a lot of countries, and I would love to go everywhere. It's just that for now, the limitation is that we are a small company. This is a hardware. What we need to make sure is that the maintenance is going to be low on these devices, because this is, of course, a big risk in hardware. So we start pushing sales on proximity, like Spain, Italy, Portugal, in Europe first. We already also have clients in Africa, because I used to work a lot in Africa, so of course I'm really happy to be back there, but I don't want to push 5 continents at the same time, because I know it would be too ambitious and putting the company at risk.
Okay. Coming back a little bit to the early days of your product, it's you have a very finite and nice product that you can see here on the video. But did you start selling before you had this product fully ready? How did you manage to convince your first paying customer that it was the solution?
Yeah, well, that's the hardware, and that's maybe the difference with software, is that you can't present a mock-up, like, even if it's functional. So our first prototype was already very evolved. It had to be working, and that's also like an ethical problem, because I don't want to put my name on a product that doesn't work, because it hurts credibility a lot. So of course I understand the sell first mindset, and I talked to client very early on, but rather than selling, I was trying to understand their pain, the way they were tracking animal, what they needed, and the kind of problem that they were facing with the equipment that they already had, because our first prototype already had to be really qualitative, because I couldn't, of course, convince people to equip wild animals. It's a delicate operation, and ethically I didn't want to sell something that is not ready.
And also the value proposition of Nix relies on this longevity and resilience to all kind of weather, all kind of geographical topology. And so coming back to today, what is your strategy now? Imagine that the funding, you will manage the funding, I'm sure. What is your strategy to scale sales and adoption for the next year?
Yeah, well, we are starting this year with distribution partnerships. For example, for smallholder farmers, we are setting up distribution partnerships with agriculture equipment retailers, because they already have contacts with clients, and so they will buy a huge stock from us and then resell to their clients, which also helps me get volume. And of course, I do partnerships. For example, we use a lot of referrals. When the vets are happy with the products, it's a small world. So they actually recommend us, and that's how we get a lot of clients, through referral. For now, we don't do a lot of paying marketing. We do SEO, internally produce content, and to scale up, we will need to invest a little bit in the visibility, regional radio, meet, and maybe also fairs. So we do, for example, the agriculture exhibition in Paris that every year in February. We have the livestock summit in Clermont-Ferrand in October, so we go to fairs also, and we reach out directly to clients, of course, so more prospection from our side, so that we can reach out to more clients. And we're really happy because we start having inbound leads, which means that this strategy of SEO and content, when I ask people, but how did you hear about us? I got a solicitation from Morocco a month ago. They were looking for devices for monkeys close to Fez, and I asked them how they knew about us, and they told me that they typed animal tracking GPS on Google and found me.
Wow.
So I was really happy about it.
And so that's a great question. How do you handle personal branding and company branding for the strategy to acquire more inbound leads? Do you prefer company, personal, both of them at the same time?
Well, I don't really like to put myself in the spotlight, and I want the company to have its own identity. So I usually prefer to communicate under the brand. But of course, I know that nowadays, and especially early stage companies, the founders are the face of the company. So personal branding is really impacting a lot the company's branding. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, professional network, which is actually helping a lot, giving visibility to and credibility to our product. And I'm also starting doing podcasts now.
With this one, thank you for it. What is your, you seem to have a lot of leads, and you seem to have several niches that you can address: farmers, wildlife, public sectors. Do you have a preference? Like, what is the hottest market? And maybe that's one of the questions that the investor might ask you, like, what is your focus now? And maybe there's one that is paying more, one that is going faster, one will help your industrialization.
It's a good question. Actually, I started only with the wildlife tracking. So animal tracking is 3 segments: wildlife, livestock, and pets. Okay. So we don't do pets because your cat and dog, they are in urban cities. You can catch them every week, so they don't really need connectivity and longevity. But in wildlife and livestock, the pain can be really similar because we don't do intensive livestock, just extensive livestock free grazing. Those segments are pretty important. For example, there was a study from the National Institute of Breeding in France this year, okay. And they asked farmers about these new technologies to help them manage their herds, and the level of equipment actually now in France is 8%. More or less of the farmers are already equipped with this kind of technologies to help them manage land and monitor there. But over 30% were saying that they were considering an equipment in the next year. So the time is now. And even if I have a preference for wildlife, because I think the impact, of course, is huge and it's keystone species, so I love it, but it's mostly in Europe, public markets. So the time to market and the sales cycle is much longer because you have to be on public markets. So that's how I decided last year also to go on the livestock segment because the decisions are made faster, and that's where we sell more volumes now. But in the future, I think that the vision will be more or less 50-50. It's just that the livestock is more volumes but lower prices. Wildlife is a little less volume but higher prices.
Let's imagine that I'm a customer, so I have my own sheeps, for example. I tried already connectivity solutions, but I've given up. I say I lose some sheeps, and that's okay. How would you convince me to go for Nix?
Well, actually, that's the case of most of my clients. Some of them already tried some equipment and it didn't work because of connectivity, because actually tracking devices failure are 70% due to connectivity issues, so it's not rare. So usually to convince them, I just show them. I offer them a 15 days trial, and I send them a device and I say, hey, either you satisfy or I refund you. And actually last week it happened in the middle of the Pyrenees. The clients called me and was like, oh, well, it's pretty accurate. I'm very surprised. And this person used to have some competitor material. So I'm really happy because they already know what it's worth, how it works. And our product seemed to be answering their main problem, which is getting the data in an area where there is almost no network.
And so then they can see the animals on their phones or on the computers or both? Okay.
Yeah, the app is both computer and mobile, so they can consult it from everywhere they want. But it's true that for livestock, usually it's more on the phone that they will consult it. For wildlife, scientists are more maybe using the computer also for analytics.
Okay. What needs to happen for Nix to become like the reference in the animal tracking world?
Well, first of all, we need to get some funding so that we can industrialize what we've already done. So the tech works we are producing in small series, but it's very costly. So if we want to expand, we were going to need to reduce our production costs and, of course, to expand in new countries, which means hiring bigger sales teams, support teams, and probably putting together some local hubs in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, wherever we have clients, so that we can be close to them.
I'm not familiar with this universe. I might ask a silly question, but I'm gonna ask it because it's what strikes me when I say let's put more electronics on animals. Some might wonder if it's not ecological to have some electronics around the neck of our cows and sheep. So what do you say to those people?
No, I understand the concern because sometimes it can be shocking, especially for wildlife. People see something around the neck of a wild animal and it can be shocking, and I understand that. It's just that the mortality rate is so high and the value of these species is so high that there is no other way to protect them. So I actually would rather do nothing and leave them alone. It's just that it's a little bit too late for that. So, it would be best if we didn't need that. And for us, the objective is not to leave electronics in nature. So that's why we retrieve the devices to not leave them in nature. Years ago with the satellite, they dropped it in nature and then it was hard to find, and it's pollution. So of course I understand this
concern,
this concern from people, because seeing a wild animal is not natural. Of course it's not natural, but it's the only way we have to protect them right now.
And so let's imagine I have my herd with all my collars and I lose one of my cows, lose the collar. Can I retrieve it easily? Can I, and do you recycle them as well? That's always a good question to ask.
Sure.
With
Well, it's a tracking device, so if it falls off, you're supposed to find it back. The only problem could be when there is no battery. But on our application, we have a battery level indication so that when the battery level is low, an intervention can be planned so that they can retrieve the device before it stops emitting. And then, of course, the recycling part. So what we do, first of all, is local sourcing. So this is made in France, everything. And for the battery, we have a recycling process, so we don't throw it away. We try to make it recyclable, reusable, and of course we are a small company. For now our footprint is limited, but we have already in mind that the carbon footprint of logistics can be high, so that's why we're considering local production, small supplier circuits, so that we can cut these emissions, of course.
Cool. One question that I like to ask is, how did you learn the hard truth and the hardship of entrepreneurship? How did you become, the entrepreneur that you are right now? You still figure it out, your style, your sales speech and everything is evolving. You're still pretty early in the process, but what key resources help you? What key person you mentioned somebody at the beginning? I will put him in the comment section. Maybe you have an entrepreneur that you look up to, and maybe a mentor that you would like to quote here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, entrepreneurship is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think it takes some level of unconsciousness to start, because when you know what you're up to, sometimes it can be discouraging. So it's learning by doing, and you really need to show a lot of resilience, a lot of commitment, and a high level of energy. So great for me. I'm an hyperactive person, but it's the minimum we can do as an entrepreneur, not to get too tired. So yeah, of course, getting help from people who've been there, who've done that, is really important. And I think that Techstar has helped a lot. The network of entrepreneurs was really helpful in identifying the the pitfalls that usually entrepreneurs fall into when you don't know, because when you're an entrepreneur, you have to do everything at the beginning yourself. So you have to be multitasking, prioritizing, and looking for the right people. So I'm really happy that I found mentors like, for example, Elena Wasserman from Investors for Climate Network. I met her during Textiles, and just yesterday I was pitching at her side event from Change Now when she introduced me to a lot of climate investors. And whenever I have a problem, mainly due to sales, I can have her as a sparring partner, and it's really great. So I don't hesitate to ask for help, because we're not supposed to know everything. And I know that it's very human to not learn about the mistakes until you do them. But I'd actually rather learn from others than learn it the hard way.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Now that we have covered the Nix and we know everything about it, if somebody wanted to find you, follow you for the company, or maybe, you know, acquire the solution for them, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, we have our website, nixiot.com, where you can contact us. We also have LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook network. So the company is Nix Air Solutions, and my name is Amélie Campino. So you can also ask me on LinkedIn, and I will be happy to answer all your questions.
And let's say I'm ready. On how many weeks or months do I have to wait until I get my color? If I order now, pre-ship.
Yeah, for now the delivery time is like 4 to 6 weeks.
It's pretty fast, you know.
Yeah,
it's
fast okay. Well, it's not a big hardware, so we can be fast between the moment of order and the moment of delivery.
Okay, so unless I have 6,000 devices, then I have you.
Be happy, but the delivery time will be longer.
You know, and you said that entrepreneurship, and especially climate tech entrepreneurship, is kind of hard. What other friends and entrepreneur would you like to be seated in your place for my next episode on Reactor, to shine that light on them?
Great. Yeah. I have a few ideas for you. For example, there is a company called Sand to Green. Regenerate the desert, regenerative agriculture in desert areas. I think this is key, because we are going to have more and more desertification. We need to work with climate conditions. So Benjamin from Sand to Green would be a great recommendation I could give you. Then I also think about Julia from S-Lab. They are doing recyclable packaging from mycelium, fully biodegradable. And I think it's also very important because we are using a lot of plastic, and it's a great company. I also think about a company that's here in Change Now that's called Movopack, also in recyclable packaging. I might have a few other suggestions. So for now, I have these three. But don't hesitate to ask me, because I have a lot of contacts.
Thank you very much. They all need media coverage and to know more about what they do, because it's amazing. We have reached the end of this episode. I'm really glad to have you and present Nix, present your company and your history, your change of career from consulting to this incredible Nix adventure. Thank you very much, Amelie.
Thank you, Jérôme. I was really glad to be on your podcast, and Change Now is a really great event, so I hope that we see each other very soon.
So I will put all the link to find Amelie, to find her company on the comment section. So don't hesitate to subscribe, to follow her, and to reach out to her if you need it. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.